We did sleepers, so of course we've got to do busts. Michael Bolton, he knows his way around a bust.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and because I live in Victoria, I have to abide by the new laws, and I have to make up an award to give to Nick Dacos. So, congratulations, Nick, on winning the best Nick in September on the 6th. Well done. You deserve it. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at LockedOnFantasyBasketball. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms, so I'd like a thumb, I'd like to double bang. I'd like you to double bang, actually, and leave your comments down below. We did the earlier show on busts. No, we didn't. Sleepers. This is busts. This is for category leagues. There will be points leagues ones coming. There will be updates to these shows when we get changes to the ranks on ESPN, changes to the ranks on Yahoo. More news that comes through, whatever. We'll probably end up doing 3 of these in total, I would say, busts and sleepers. And we're doing ESPN, Yahoo, and Fantrax in this show. Probably do 2 points league bust and sleeper shows. 3 category ones would be my guess. So we are here, like I said, to talk about busts, a term that is whatever. It's a term. It exists. It's here. I'm just talking about the guys that where they currently sit either at their ADP or they currently sit at their rank that I'm just not interested in. I just don't think it makes sense to take them there. I don't like the value proposition of it. I don't think they get to that number, or whatever the reason is. I'm just looking at that number and going, no thank you, not for me. And you might say, oh, Josh, I actually think that's okay, and that's fine as well. We always have to remember, as we get down further into drafts, the differences between players that are 10, 20, 30 spots apart is not that big. So that's, again, it's a caveat that you need to have in your mind, not to say that, well, I said this guy was a bust and you got out of it by saying, well, there's no difference. I don't care about that part of it. It's more about understanding that when you're making picks around those areas, like just do what you think is right. Look at where you think this guy might be better or worse or how it fits onto your team. That's going to be the success that you have and understanding the small differences that sometimes exist between players that we might think are larger than they actually are. So let's talk about these busts. Let's talk about busts across Yahoo leagues. Let's start off with that. To be honest, the bust list across all of the sites is actually a little bit shorter than the sleeper ones. There's not quite as many people that fall into that criteria that I set out, which is great. So let's talk. Let's start. We've got Yahoo, and people have criticized my thoughts on this already, but I don't see the value in Kevin Durant at the spot that he sits. He's ranked 10 on Yahoo. He's got an ADP of 14. I don't think that his 82% free throw shooting over the final, I think it was 25 games or whatever it was last season, I don't think that that's necessarily a real thing. It did happen, and he was like not even a top 40 player post All-Star break. I don't think that part is going to happen, but he's 36. I'm not going to put faith in 75 games played. My reason is that his free throw attempt rate cut in half. His assist rate dropped. And now there's Tyus Jones. The new coach, Mike Budenholzer, probably doesn't play him 37 minutes a night. Pair all that stuff with the fact that he's 36, and I just don't want to take Kevin Durant at this spot. I just don't. I just won't take him there. In fact, I'm not sure I'd take him in the second round of a lot of sorts. But again, if you want to do it and you believe in the value and the stability of Kevin Durant, which I guess he was stable last season, even though he did fall off all through the back end of the season in the fantasy playoffs, and he's missed 1 million games in all previous seasons. I'm not sure I count that as all that stable. But you might, and that's okay. I'm just definitely not investing in it at the end of the first round. I'm not looking at him in rank 10. I'm not looking at him at ADP 14. None of that stuff. And I do think we see a slight step back in some of these season-long numbers that Durant put up last season. I've got Paolo Banchero here, and there are going to be a lot of these ones where the reason that the rankings and the ADP sits there is because of the discrepancies between category leagues and points leagues. And Paolo's always going to be the poster child for that sort of thing. Not that he's really a child, although he is pretty young. The man with apparently, what do you have? 2,500 unread texts on his phone? Bro, just answer a text. What are you doing? He's ranked 37th on Yahoo. His ADP is 35, which in a points league is actually too low. But in a category league, there are concerns. It's not just about him being a below-average shooter, and he was at 45.5 from the field and 73 from the line, but he gets no steals or no blocks. The rebounds are good. The points are good. The assists are good. His three-point volume is not that high. And he heads into year 3, and there's chances that 1 or 2 of the percentages improve. The defensive stats, I'm not really convinced. That could all improve. I'm not sure I want to put my money on that definitely happening. I think there are times when the hatred of him in category leagues, Paolo, goes way too far. But this is the other side of that equation to me. His teammate, Franz Wagner, I also think is a little bit too high. Yes, Franz didn't shoot very well last season. I don't believe that's a permanent thing. But I also am not looking at ADP 47 and rank 45 in the middle of round 4 as being the optimal spot, or towards the end of round 4, sorry. I don't think that makes any sense. As much as I do like Franz, he's a little bit of that person there where a traditional ranking system, the roto balanced numbers across the board, makes him look better. The traditional small forward type player. You get average to below average or slightly above average in all the categories, and you go, well, that's really strong, which in a head-to-head league is not as important. And I don't know why we'd be looking at him in this area. I still have really high hopes for Franz long term, but this is just a little early for me. And the same goes with a name that is going to come up a few times here. In fact, it's going to come up a few times because there's 2 players with this name who I'm going to mention, and that's Mikal Bridges. Obviously, a really disappointing season from Bridges last season. With the Nets as the number 1 option, he didn't do a huge... He still scored 20 points, but his efficiency dropped way off. His defensive numbers were non-existent. He didn't rebound. He didn't get big assists. And he's priced in here as if he's going to go back and be better than he was in Phoenix as a role player. And there is the advantage that people will always throw to with Bridges about he never misses a game. Again, yet. He hasn't missed a game yet. And I don't like to put the reason I'm drafting a guy is because he hasn't gotten hurt in the past. You've got to have other reasons for it. You can use that as a tiebreaker. You can use it to bump, but it can't be the reason. And I don't think the defensive stats or the 63, 64, 65% 2-point percentage, which was really floating him in Phoenix in those past years, are necessarily coming back in New York. The minutes are going to be fine, but they're always big. He's not going to have that high-level usage. I just don't like Mikal Bridges at that spot of like a rank of 60 and an ADP of 54. It's just too early for me. 80s, whatever. Fine with that there. And then, of course, I had to do it. I'm always going to do it. Well, that's not true. I'm not always going to do it because in the past, I have been a big proponent of Nikola Vucevic. It's because it's never to me about... No, you will disagree, I know. Some of you will. It's not about hating a player or being just, irrationally high or irrationally low on a player. It's about where does the value sit where they are? Because there were plenty of years where Vuce would be a top 30 player and people would look at him in the 70s like, what are we doing? I really like Vuce. I like what he does. He's solid. But then everything swung way too far. He has dropped off as an on-court player spectacularly. And in a lot of times, the fantasy opinions haven't always caught up. Yeah, he averaged 18 and 10.5 last season. I don't know whether Levine's going to be here for this team. I also don't know whether Vuce is going to be on this team. He's had like 1 good shooting season in the last 3 years, 4 years. He never blocks a shot. He's not bad, but that number of Vuce with an ADP of 52 suggests that he just replicates exactly what he did last season. And I'm not sure that I'm fully on board with that being the case. I'm not sure about it. In fact, I'm just not going to be drafting him there at like the start of round 5. That's not of interest to me. Today's episode is brought to you, and this is of interest to me. It's brought to you by eBay Motors. The Bulls don't have that passion or drive or patience to build a championship team. Hence why they've been a dreadful team for years and years and years, because they don't know the secrets, but eBay Motors does. They know that they have everything that you need to maintain your vehicle. They've got the passion. They've got the parts, which isn't one of the things, but it sure it is. The drive, brum brum, it's all there with eBay Motors. Whether it's brake kits, LED headlights, bumpers, bumpers, roof racks, exhaust kits, whatever. It is all there over at eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, you know that the part you're getting for your car is going to fit guaranteed, because if it doesn't, well, the guarantee saves you. You get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. Okay, so that is our first little group of Yahoo bust players. Let's go through the rest. As usual, there are a lot of carryovers, and that does, the reason there is carryovers in my sleepers and bust between all different sites is because it's just, I view a player and their role and their production in a certain way, and others don't. And there's the differences that come up. And again, saying someone is a bust does not mean that you think they're bad or that they're going to be terrible. It's just that I'm not willing to go that high on them. And that's the same thing that I'm going to say here for Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray, I think he's going to be fine. But his ADP is 75, his rank is 71, and now he goes back to being the fourth option. Fifth, when Malik Monk joins that group. He doesn't generate big defensive stats. He might get more rebounds with DeMar DeRozan replacing Harrison Barnes. He's not going to get assists, ever. Doesn't get steals or blocks, even though he's a good defender. And he's not going to shoot it. He's only 18 usage last season. Where's that going to come from? Is Sabonis going to go to a no-usage player? Is Fox going to turn into a no-usage player? Is DeRozan going to turn into a 3-and-D Alex Caruso-type legend? Yeah, I would say the chances of that are pretty low. So I just don't get why I would want to invest a pick this high in Keegan Murray. It doesn't make sense. This is suggesting stability or improvement from last year. He's 24, so he's still got room to improve it. 15-5, low assist, steals, and blocks. Well, blocks are fine, actually. Like field goal percentage drop, that'll probably jump up, but that 18 usage probably comes down. His minutes are already 34. I'm not sure they can go that much higher. I think we just sort of sit with Keegan there and around 90, around 100. Fine, sure, do it. At 71, no thank you. Already talked about the fact that we're going to be Bridges-ing ourselves here. And Miles is on this list for me as well. Miles Bridges has a rank of 52 on Yahoo and an ADP of 58. That's about the production that he did last season. And yeah, Charles Lee comes in. I think he's going to bump the pace up for Bridges, and the Hornets in general. He averaged 21-7. He had 26 usage and played 37 minutes. The defensive stats weren't really there. And you could argue that LaMelo Ball comes in and improves some of his shooting, but I'd also argue that he's not maintaining 26 usage. He's probably not playing 37 minutes. He might go from the first offensive option to the third. It's a waste of a pick. Irrespective of how you view the guy as a bloke and how you want to take that into your decisions, I just don't think the fantasy numbers are there. I also don't think it makes a lot of sense to be looking at the poop cookie himself, Michael Porter Jr. ADP of 67, a rank of 70. What for? Why would that be a solid investment? Like the reason that some ranking metrics may have him there, they'll say, well, he doesn't turn it over. Okay, that's great. That's really good. Gigi Jackson's not going to turn it over until Christmas either. Porter, 17 points is fine. But in a standard fantasy league, the average points is about 18. His threes at 2.7. He's above average. His rebounds are above average. KCP had a 13% usage. So there's not all KCP leaving doesn't mean that Porter gets his shots. Because that would mean that the guy replacing KCP takes 0 shots. I just don't get it. And for Porter, we actually got a really good health season from him. This is just a pick that doesn't make any remote sense to me. I like Jabari Smith. Year 3 is a time when many players improve. His ADP is 80, but where does the improvement come from? Where does he get the extra shots? Because they didn't lose anybody. In fact, they just got guys like Amen, and they added Reed Shepherd and Cam Whitmore second year and a full year of Tari, maybe never season. So where does Smith do more? Maybe he starts blocking more shots. His minutes rose and his efficiency rose, and maybe efficiency rises even further. But I just don't think at 81 that's going to be the one that we want. And this is where I think it's a perfect example of my thoughts and how I view fantasy, because Kobe White was a guy that I loved. Last round of last season, no one talked about that he was going to be the starting Bulls point guard, and I thought he was, and then he was, and I loved drafting him, and I pleaded to hold on to him for quite a significant amount of time. And then he was really good. He had some struggles, but now a rank of 81, an ADP of 81, which is not terrible. He has some issues. I'm not sure where his assists are going to go because I think Josh Giddey's going to get quite a lot of those. His efficiency is going to be all over the shop. Does he play 37 minutes a night again? I don't know. He doesn't get defensive numbers. And, like, what if Lonzo plays? I'm not saying that Lonzo's going to play over Kobe, but it's just extra bodies in that guard room. And I still like Kobe White. I still think he's worth a crack. I just don't think that 81 is a super valuable spot to be taking him. You won't be surprised to know that on this list is Brandon Ingram. I don't know what's happening with him and the team. I don't know if he's going to play for the Pelicans. I don't know any of that stuff. He's 27 years of age, averaged 21, 5, and almost 6. As per usual, bad steals and bad blocks and almost invisible amount of threes. He had 27 usage, and now DeJounte Murray arrives. He's had a lot of health problems as well. I don't think he's going to handle the ball as much or take as many shots. Don't know if is he going to get benched at times because they've got players that might be better than him. And you're doing that for a rank of 58 and ADP 64. Not on my watch. Not happening. What about Brookie Lopez, who was a weird season for Brook. He started out like we looked at him and go, is this guy cooked? Is he washed? And it did appear that way for a little bit of time. And then they changed the scheme. He got those blocks back. And then Doc Rivers came in, put on his stethoscope, and Brook sort of faded off. Absolutely still a guy that we're looking to draft, but not at an ADP of 75. I don't understand that. He's 36. There was rumors of him being traded in the offseason. Maybe those blocks do jump back up. But the evidence we suggest is that maybe they probably don't. That's what I would suggest. The Baptist Johnny Collins has a rank of 93. I'm not sure he's playing even the same minutes he played last season. That is just way too early. Jalen Green's ADP is 95, and while he had a really, really strong top 5 run for about 2 weeks, the rest of the year was pretty bad. And even after that, he started to fade away, and now they are healthy again. Şengün is there. You've got a men pushing Reed's there. Is he going to start being a rebound player or an assist player or an elite free throw guy or an elite field goal guy or a steals player? I would say no to all of those things. And while 95 is not a super, super high pick, I think if he's 110, I would have a crack, but not really at 95. And the same goes with Jeremy Grant. The Ides of March is probably going to get him again. He never rebounds or gets assists or gets steals or gets blocks. He shoots well and shoots okay, but there's also a lot of other guys who are going to shoot the ball. That is just, to me, 120 for Jez, do it. Whatever, fine. I have no interest in him at that spot of 94. It just seems to be just calling for you to lose value. The last bunch of guys that I want to talk about on Yahoo, again, we're looking at the lower ends. I didn't want to go into ranks that are outside like top 120 or anything like that because who cares? Naz Reid at 101 ADP and 103. Everyone loves Naz Reid, big vibes guy, love that. 101 is aggressive. That is like round 9. That is not even your last starter. It's your second last starter. And he still remains a backup. He had some solid moments. He'll probably pick up 1 or 2 minutes with Kyle Anderson gone. But he is not starting. He just isn't. Townsend Gobert, Reid is not starting. He's a backup big who's not necessarily a defensive stats guy. He shoots and he's shot really well. You do worry sometimes for 3-point percentage how it fluctuates. And draft Naz Reid. I drafted him in the league the other day, but not at 101. Much like with Tyus Jones. I love that at 120. That's fantastic. At 96, no thank you. He might think that he's the starting point guard, and he might start as the starting point guard, but how much do we want to take A, the ball out of Booker, Beal, and Durant's hands? B, what about the spacing that Grayson Allen provides? C, what about the defense that Royce O'Neal provides? All of those guys are going to have to be used by Budenholzer. And I do not think that Jones, even if he starts, is a 30-minute-a-night player. If he was, I would love that for him there. But I don't think he is, so I don't love him. This Clint Capela one, really easy to me. No way. Rank of 74, absolutely no chance. I don't know whether he starts over Onyeka Okongwu. I actually doubt it. But even if he did, I wouldn't be touching him at number 74. Even at 90, 120, let's do it. Let's try it, right? At 74, that makes no sense to me. And I actually like that portion of a draft on Yahoo because Keegan Murray's going there, Brook Lopez is going there, Clint Capela's ranked there, and I don't want any part of those guys, meaning I'm more likely to get somebody I like in that area. Bobby Portis is ranked at 107 with an ADP of 115. He is Naz Reid. He's a big man who scores. He doesn't do anything with his defensive stats. And he's a reserve, and you're sort of waiting for someone to be out before he steps up. Which I get. That's a stashable sort of player in certain formats. It's not someone that I'm taking to be my 9th best player. Not interested in that. And the next one here is Aaron Nesmith, who is a really strong perimeter defender. He gets a lot of fouls, but he has a good role. He defends well. Sometimes he gets steals. Ranking at 114 again suggests that you would grab him and you would put him into your starting lineup on an every night basis, which you just wouldn't. You just wouldn't do any of that stuff with Nesmith, I don't believe. I don't even think he's a draftable player, honestly, in a standard format. They're trying to get Jarris Walker to play at the 3. They're going to give Ben Shepherd some minutes. Ben Mathurin returns. Nembhard starting at the 2. Nesmith was great, but it wasn't that good for fantasy that I look at him as like, yeah, we locked that in. He's a starter for us in our teams, and we are absolutely bang on, ready to go. That one, for me, is not there. We'll talk about ESPN in a sec, but today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Maybe if we had some curiosity like we did when we were kids, we'd be able to determine that some of these rankings aren't maybe what they need to be. And trying to find where that value is encourages our curiosity. Curiosity, learning new things is something that's really common as a kid, but as adults, it wanes. So maybe it's time for us to get into our back-to-school era, and therapy with BetterHelp can be a way that you can help rediscover that, get the joy back, get the learning back, find those hobbies and things you're going to be interested in that can help alleviate some of the stresses of your everyday life. So if you are sitting in a bit of a rut, hey, I'm not learning anything new. What's coming to me? What am I going to do? Where's my hobbies? What am I interested in? Well, that is not an easy thing to dig through, and talking through some of the things that might hold you back and ways to plan that out is a way that therapy can help. So you can get online with BetterHelp, fill out a questionnaire, they match you up with a therapist. If that doesn't work, you can actually just match with another one free of charge and find the right fit. So rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com /LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp, HELP.com /LockedOnNBA. That's time for us to talk ESPN busts. And while we had about 35 pages of guys that I thought were ranked too low over on ESPN, with the busts, we don't quite have that many. We've still got some, but not that big of a number. It is bigger than Yahoo still, which is, again, not a gigantic surprise. And I'm going to start off just by telling you that drafting Ja Morant at rank number 12 is the recipe to lose. Ja Morant has never been a very strong category league player. Steals, blocks, low volume threes, not great rebounds, below par field goals and free throws is not the recipe for a good fantasy category player. For points leagues, sure, whatever. He gets a lot of points and a lot of assists. I'm actually higher on Morant for category leagues than a lot of people are. But rank 12 ADP 18, of course not. What are we doing? Bam Adebayo is ranked at 21. I feel like Bam has been pretty stagnant the last couple of years. Yeah, his usage has gone up, but his block numbers have non-existent. His assists have stayed down. I'll be very interested to see what he does, because towards the end of, and I've said this a few times, towards the end of last season, Bam, who was going at about a 4% three-point attempt rate, the last month or so of the season jumped that to like 14 or 15%. He's just started taking more threes. The problem that might lead to with Bam for his fantasy, that's great. He adds threes to his game now. But what that might mean if he starts taking more threes is that is that like pretending a move for him to play the 4? And when you play the 4 as a previous center, your field goal percentage drops. The more threes you take, your field goal percentage drops, because we use an antiquated stat in field goal percentage, which is a terrible measure of a player's efficiency. We should use effective field goal percentage, but we don't. We could use true shooting, whatever. But when you start taking more threes, your field goals drop. When you move to power forward, your blocks drop, and that really can't go down, but your rebounds drop as well. And with all those things sort of up in the air about Bam, and him not being a top 22 player, recently I'm not doing that. DeMar DeRozan's ADP is 29, absolutely not. I don't know who's going to sacrifice in Sacramento. They might all sacrifice. But at 29, you have got no chance, I don't think, of that returning value for DeRozan. A, does he play those 37 minutes a night that he played last season? Is he the guy that's the primary ball handler, which he was in Chicago? 100% he's not. You can make the argument he's the third behind Sabonis and Fox. Will he lead the team in usage? Probably not. Probably second behind Fox, I would guess. Just no way. Pascal Siakam sits at 40, both his ADP and rank, bang on. He's just not that good of a category league player. He gets some rebounds, he gets some assists, but he gets no steals, no blocks, and his percentages can be a little bit off, but he scores a lot. And in points leagues, that's a pretty good number. But for category leagues, it's just not that good. And then Paolo Banchero, again, we highlight this in all of them, but on ESPN, his ADP is 22, his rank is 26. Like, bro, for a points league, knock yourself out. For a category league, well, you are literally knocking yourself out of contention of winning. Maybe Paolo gets to that number. I'd be pretty surprised. I don't really know how that happens. It would be a shock to the system. We've already talked about a lot of these guys already. They're on the Yahoo bust list. They're on the ESPN bust list. Mikal Bridges, he sits at 52 and 54 on ESPN. Vooch has got a rank of 37. I cannot with that. No, absolute. Please do not do that. It's an ADP of 42, Vooch on ESPN. No. Kuzma's ranked 57th. And in a points league, I could say maybe. In a category league, I say, what are we doing? No. We're not looking at Kyle Kuzma at pick 57. And Kuzma, much like a lot of these guys that we have some issues with at times where he has iffy percentages, even though he improved his free throws, he gets no steals, no blocks, and he's an okay rebounder. He did improve his assists. But is he going to stay on this team? I don't know. No interest in that at that spot. Keegan Murray somehow more aggressive on ESPN, up to ADP of 69. Keegan, while that might be nice and all, it's not. It's actually the opposite of nice. I can't possibly fill out the rest of my team if I'm taking Keegan on pick 69, sorry. How could I possibly do that? That is just way too early for that selection. Let's go to the man who probably is a bench player in New Orleans, and Christian James McCollum. His ADP his rank is 66. Now I know, historically, I've been down on CJ's fantasy game. He shot the ball really well. He had a weird increase in defensive stats last season. Surely no one's looking at him at 66 and going, yeah, seems pretty good. I'm in on that. As a guy that's probably coming off the bench. Behind DeJounte and Herb, and then with there's Trey and there's Ingram. There's so many guys there. And I'm pretty sure he's going to lose out and lose out in a significant enough way. We've talked about the Bridges already. Miles Bridges on ESPN is also a guy that I'm not that interested. He's ranked at what are we doing? 45? No. That again suggests he's probably going to be better than he was last season. I'd suggest he won't be. Austin Reeves' ADP is 67, and I think there are times when Reeves gets a little bit maybe unfairly viewed. He was fine last season, but that's great. That's way too high. As is Terry Rozier, ranked at 75. Terry Rozier, when he joined Miami, his usage dropped significantly. His assist rate dropped significantly. There were changes in his percentages as well. I don't really think that's a factor. Right? I'm not taking that into consideration. Well, now he's in Miami. He shoots worse. I don't think that's a factor. But how he gets the ball in his hands when he's sharing the court with Hero and Butler and Bam, I don't know. Is he the primary point guard, or is it Hero? Is it Butler? In Charlotte, the last 2 years, before he was traded, LaMelo barely played, so he was a point guard. He had all the usage, like 28 usage and high assist rate. And those two things will not exist in Miami. So that's burning a pick to get Rozier at that spot. And while I have never been in on Rowan Barrett Jr. as a fantasy category league player, I'm somewhat in on him this season. Not at 85, though. He improved a lot with his field goal percentage. Still lacks completely with defensive stats and hits no threes. His free throws were dreadful. I'm just not doing that at 85. And we've talked to Kobe White already, and I said at 81. I didn't really like that on Yahoo. Well, at 56 on ESPN, it's one of the biggest steer clear stayaways that you'll ever see, I think. That just doesn't add up to me. I can't see any reasoning why that would be the case. Brandon Ingram is going to appear here again. He's ranked at 42. In no world is that real. No chance. Herbalife Jones at 70. One of those really interesting ones that you'll see a ranking for him on a 9-cat basis because he never turns it over, and he'll appear to be that valuable, and he's not. The steals are nice, but much like with CJ, even if Jones starts over CJ, it doesn't mean he's playing 35 minutes. And he's a guy that gives you steals with low volume in basically everything else. It's not a top 70 pick, I don't think. John Collins is at 87. Like, that's higher than on Yahoo, and I'm even less interested in him there. And then one of the worst, most egregious rankings you will see is Jalen Green with an ADP of 36. 36, that's the 4th round on ESPN. 36. And a rank of 59. So people see that rank of Jalen Green at 59, and they've gone, nah, we're actually 2 rounds higher than that. What are we doing? You guys have ranked. So there are people who look at that rank of Jalen. Maybe Jalen has this crazy breakout season, and I am very wrong on this. That is also possible at any point. Maybe he does become a 50% shooter, goes 87 from the line, 6 attempts, and gets his assist to 5.5. Maybe all of that happens. I say it's pretty unlikely, but maybe it does. But there are people who are sitting there and they're seeing Jalen Green at 59 and go, man, what a sleeper. Don't tell anyone, but I'm drafting Jalen Green. He's at a ridiculously low price. How is that possible? But that's what's happening. That's what's happening here, apparently, somehow. Jeremy Grant's at 99. All of the same Ides of March stuff are at play here. And the same stuff is at play with Tyus Jones, where he's ranked at 104 with an ADP of 106. I just don't think there's going to be enough for him to do. Clint Capela, not as aggressively ranked on ESPN, still sitting at 95 with an ADP of 114. And I don't mind that ADP of 114. Maybe that's okay. I still have some real concerns about what his role is, but 95, I'm not doing that. And same with Josh Hart. Like, ADP of 120 is still too high, but a rank of 88, he was able to be very good the second half of last season, playing 46 minutes a night. The first half of last season, he was playing like 26, and he was not a roster rule player. And with Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Randall, DiVincenzo, how is Hart playing 46 minutes a night? The answer is he isn't. So he's nowhere near worth pick 88. Not even close to it. Denny Avdia had a sort of breakout second half of last season, shot the ball better. His usage went up. He's ranked at 92. I can't abide by that either. Because it's all about context. It's very easy to suggest that Portland's a bad team and the worst team in the Western Conference, and that's almost definitely true. But Simons and Scoot and Sharp and Grant and Ayton are all going to touch the ball. There's no way that Denny Avdia enters this season as the number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4 offensive option. So are you getting by with rebounds or are you getting by with steals from him? If you want to take him, do it. 92 just does not seem right to me. And this one is... we looked at Grayson Allen... Oh, great. This is Grayson Allen. We looked at Jalen Green with an ADP of 36 and go, that's pretty crazy. But why the hell is Grayson Allen ranked at 51? Now, I am down on how much they're going to play Tyus Jones, but at 51, Grayson Allen, what are we doing? He had a usage of 15% last year in 34 minutes. So the usage probably isn't changing. The minutes almost definitely are. He's not playing 34 a night this season. If Tyus Jones is starting, Grayson Allen isn't popping his head in off the bench and playing 34. He got there through unbelievable shooting, like 46% three-point shooting, which, if you're going to bank on that number and look at that number and go, which way is it going to go? It's going down 99.9% of the time. Minutes are going down 99.9 times as well. That's how often that's going down. And he's doing nothing else. And even those 3 assists a game that Grayson Allen got, well, with Tyus Jones there, like, he's not going to get those. So 51 would be the all-time disaster pick, I think. If anyone's in the draft and taking him there, like, that is literally, like, I won't say it's literally a disaster because, you know, there are actual disasters. But from a fantasy perspective, it's pretty disastrous. Let's flip it. Let's do Fantrax. Fewer busts on Fantrax, which is, again, the usual pattern how this stuff goes. And most of them are the names that we've mentioned already. Kobe White's ADP on Fantrax is 58, which I am very surprised about. Maybe my assessment of White this season is off. Now, was Kobe White even a top 60 player last season? I don't think so. Like, DeMar DeRozan is gone, but Zach LaVine is there. Now, LaVine maybe doesn't play. Maybe LaVine is traded. I'm not sure, but they also brought in Josh Giddey, and Lonzo Ball is allegedly going to play. So I just don't think Kobe's running 37 minutes a night with every usage in the world, and Josh Giddey is going to be doing the distributing, and not Kobe. And this just takes the top off all the value. Denny Avdia on Fantrax sits at 105. I just talked about that. Brook Lopez at 72. He's still too high. And even Grayson Allen, who insanely is at 51 on ESPN, sits at 118 on Fantrax. I just don't think he's a draftable player. And that, again, suggests that you're picking a starter. He's getting selected as a starter on your fantasy team, and I cannot get behind that either. Ingram, still too high, 68. That one's getting a little bit more in line with where I think he probably could be, but I'm still not there. And then the last 5 we're going to talk about on Fantrax are names that we have already discussed as well. Miles Bridges at 62. You're well aware that I'm just down on the Bridgeses. Jalen Green at 85. Not bad. Still probably too high. Vucevic at 60. Also, that's getting closer to the right spot, but I still think it's a little high. Mikal Bridges at 55 is still like that's saying better than peak Bridges in Phoenix, which I don't agree with. And then Naz Reid at 107. You're drafting him as a starter, and I think you shouldn't be. Reasonable minds can disagree on a lot of these ones. You can't disagree on Grayson Allen at 51, but a lot of them, you can disagree on a lot of these different things. And that's cool. That's the beauty of this game. So they just went through there and found the guys across the sites, Yahoo, ESPN, and Fantrax, who I think are just rated too highly, whether that's through their ADP or through their ranking number. And that does bring us to the end of the fantasy busts for category leagues. So what you can do, you can go ahead and hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.